A tough-looking man resembling an Italian mafioso goes up in the elevator in one of the business centers in Chicago. He enters an office, and a woman sitting there is terrified to see him. A man tells her to lighten up, 'cause if he meant to harm her, she'd be dead by now. He hands her a bullet, asks her to analyze it and identify the manufacturer, saying that this is the bullet that killed his colleague. The woman says that she can't learn anything from this bullet. Then, a dot from a laser sight appears on her forehead near the bindi. And in a second, the woman is shot in the head from the building across the street. The man sees 4 shooters on the roof and rushes out of the office. In the corridor, he calls an elevator to make himself more room for a running start. His heart beats at an incredible rate, and it looks like his reaction is several times greater than normal. Having pushed himself off the elevator wall, the man races down the corridor at an incredible speed, Flash style. He breaks through the window with his head, crushing the glass that somehow survived the gunfire. While dashing through the air towards the building, he manages to kill 3 of the shooters. Even more, he shot the 3rd one by firing a curved bullet around the corner. After he landed on the 2nd from the top floor of the building, it takes him 5 seconds to eliminate the last remaining shooter. Then the man answers the cell phone that rang in the shooter's pocket, saying that there's no way to leave the fraternity, and there is no point to send the sheep to kill a wolf. He gets the reply, stating that they were just a bait. Looking down, the man sees the X-Men logo under his feet. After that, a fine, vintage-looking bullet pierces his skull. Reverse motion shows us all the complexity of the shot. It turns out the bullet has a multi-stage design like a rocket. The shot was fired a few miles from the building by a man named Cross. 2 weeks later, Wesley is woken up by his girlfriend, who yells at him demanding that he finds them a new home because she can't sleep there near the subway. The young man works as an ordinary office clerk and suffers from panic attacks, which he suppresses with medicines. However, they have a side effect: complete apathy. He doesn't care about anything, not even the fact that his girlfriend is regularly cheating on him with his friend Barry. Wesley still can't gather himself up to outspeak this to them. His boss always hammers him for being too slow at work. Wesley suffers from an existential crisis, permanently thinking about why his father abandoned their family, which happened shortly after his birth. When the boss starts yelling at him because of the report, Wesley feels a panic attack so severe that his heart is beating at a frantic pace, and his whole environment seems to be slowing down. After the boss leaves, Wesley immediately devours a handful of sedative drugs. In the evening, when he attempts to withdraw some cash, the guy finds that his account is almost empty. He walks into a store for another batch of sedatives. There he sees a strange man watching him. It is Cross, who killed the man on the roof. Turning around, Wesley sees Angelina Jolie staring at him. The guy is uncomfortable with her pushy manners, but suddenly the girl says she knew his father. At first, Wesley takes it skeptically, but the girl continues, claiming that he was killed a few days ago, and his killer is right behind him. Then the girl takes out the Colt and begins to equalize Americans, opening fire on Cross. The gunfight bursts out in the store. Wesley is overwhelmed by a panic attack. He tries to escape, but the strange girl holds him back. Then she takes out the corner shot device and starts shooting off the mirrors to limit the Cross's field of search. At this moment, Wesley takes the opportunity and runs outside. Cross tries to catch him in the van, but the girl carefully gets Wesley into her red Ferrari. The chase continues. The girl hangs through the windshield and fires at the van. Wesley and Jolie, with her right foot, drive the car in turns. The guy, meanwhile, admires the view. A police squad blocks the street before our heroes. Having assessed the situation quickly, the girl jumps behind the wheel and makes the Ferrari skid. The wheels hit the drain and the car flips, landing on the bus. After that, the couple resumes their tour of the night city. But that was too much for Wesley, and he goes faint. Wesley wakes up in what looks like a textile factory. He tries to leave, but all exits are blocked by some unfriendly men. Then the girl from the store shows up, and Wesley desperately tries to convince everyone that he's just an office slave, being nothing of interest to anyone in the entire world.
I don't have any money.
A man appears with a gun in his hand. He gives Wesley a gun and tells him to shoot and hit a fly circling over a trash can. Wesley looks shocked by such a request. Then the man makes the task harder and tells him to hit the wing of the fly instead. Wesley feels a gun pointed at the back of his head. The big guy behind says that if Wesley didn't shoot, he'd get shot instead. A panic attack makes Wesley's reaction so quick that he can track the movement of the fly's wings. After firing 6 bullets, Wesley rushes to take his medicine, but the leader stops him and shows him the flies with their wings shot off. He throws away his meds and says his heart was beating at 400 beats per minute. His pituitary gland spilled a huge amount of hormones into his bloodstream, which made the reaction several times quicker. This is not a panic attack, but the power he inherited from his father. Wesley thinks he's crazy and threatens him with a gun, asking to stay away. The man introduces himself by the name of Sloan, and Angelina is Fox. Sloan says Wesley himself is crazy, slaving away at the office with such potential instead of freeing his power and using it. He gives him an opportunity to avenge his father and kill Cross.
This gun you're holding, and it belonged to your father. He could conduct a symphony orchestra with it.
Also, they transferred all his father's money to Wesley's account. After all that, they let the poor guy go. The next morning, Wesley wakes up thinking that what has happened was just a dream. But in the bathroom, he's forced to come to senses by a gun that fell out of his pocket. He hides the gun in the toilet tank. Wesley goes to the nearest ATM and finds out that there are more than $3.5 million in his account. At work, Wesley studies articles about the murder of his father on the roof of a skyscraper. All of a sudden, the boss shows up and greets the guy nicely.
Jesus H. fucking popsicle, I still don't have my billing reports.
She yells at him again that the report is still not ready and he wastes his time surfing the internet. The boss threatens him that she will destroy his career, and Wesley replies politely, "Shut the f*** up!" He tells all the truth about her and how the whole department laughs behind her back. He does real emotional damage. Then he grabs his keyboard and goes away. Barry calls him a man with balls and wants to give him a high five, but Wesley smashes his face with a keyboard for screwing his girlfriend. Exhilarated, he leaves the building and sees newspapers with the articles about his yesterday's adventure in the store. Fox picks him up and he happily jumps into her car. The girl brings him to the weaving factory. At first, Wesley thinks that this mill serves only as a cover, but as it turns out, they are indeed master weavers and run this business expertly. They call themselves the Fraternity of Weavers. When Wesley walks up to the factory canteen, he realizes that they're the real weavers. He says he doesn't want to go back to his old life, and Sloan puts Fox in charge of training him. Then, the training begins. They tie him to a chair and start to beat him, asking why he came here. He doesn't understand what they want from him, and just says that it's certainly not to be beaten in the face. Then the battered guy is brought before a butcher who tries to train him in knife fighting. They don't spare Wesley at all, and he gets seriously injured. He wakes up in a bath full of paraffin. A guy nicknamed Exterminator is working on his recovery and says that these are special regeneration baths. To alleviate his suffering, the man gives Wesley vodka, and he immediately understands that the man is Russian.
Is it vodka?
Yeah.
Are you Russian?
Yeah.
Firearms training also takes place in an unusual way. Wesley has to learn to fire curved bullets, not only with a straight trajectory. Such a fascinating work repeats day in, day out. He's beaten to a pulp, then healed. Eventually, another corpse of a fraternity member is brought. It's the work of Cross, who eliminates them one by one. According to Sloan, only Wesley can stop him. A bit later, Fox asks the guy to catch a shuttle that moves at a tremendous speed inside the weaving loom. He tells her to put a gun to his head to stimulate his reaction, but Fox replies that he has to learn to control himself. Wesley fails and just hurts his hand. During the recovery procedure, the Russian shows him a trick with a rat. He mounts a miniature explosive device on a rodent and lures it to a safe place with peanut butter. The rat explodes. The man says Wesley's father loved that trick. The guy asks if he's okay, and what they've done to him since he behaves somewhat weird. Meanwhile, Fox climbs out from the nearby bathtub and tells Wesley to follow her to the training. This time, she starts to beat him to a pulp herself and asks the same question, why he's here and why he's wasting her time. Finally, Wesley gives the only right answer. He wants to know who he really is. He is brought to Sloan, who tells him about his father, saying that he was the best of them, and shows his belongings and room. Wesley puts on his father's jacket and resolves to measure up to him at all costs. His training now becomes meaningful, as his goal is to avenge his father. All hardships seem insignificant to him. He easily stands any bullying and absorbs loads of information about his enemy. He trains day and night with the fanaticism of the Shaolin priest. He makes short work of the knife master. The trainer who beats him broke his bones against Wesley's head. Then came Wesley's turn to beat him up. The only thing he couldn't handle was to curve a bullet. Fox decides to help him with this and stands before the carcass to motivate the guy. Feeling huge responsibility, Wesley manages to curve the bullet around her head and hits the 10 ring. Now, it's time for his first assignment. Sloan leads him to the loom. It turns out that they learn the names of their targets from the fabric made by the Loom of Fate. Their ancestors from the Fraternity deciphered a secret code that allows transforming thread irregularities into a binary sequence, which is then used to make up the names. Wesley gets the name of his first target. Fox is accompanying him on this mission. Riding on the train roof, they approach the target, but Wesley can't fire. He closes his eyes and remembers their dialogue with Fox a day earlier. He asked her how it was possible to take someone's life by order of some fabric. Fox then told him the story of a little girl whose father was a judge, principled and incorruptible. At some point, he was dealing with a case of a high-profile criminal. The defendant wanted some other judge and sent a killer named Max Petrick to his house. This killer burned his victims alive and forced their relatives to watch it, after which he carved his initials on their bodies so that they would never forget this nightmare. When Fox joined the Fraternity, she found out that the loom revealed Max Petrick's name a few days before the murder of the judge, and one of the members
had failed to pull the trigger.
That is why the Fraternity's motto is, kill one and save 1,000. After telling this story, Fox left, and Wesley saw Max Petrich's initials on her neck. Wesley opens his eyes and decides to kill the businessman by firing a curved bullet. He gets one mission after another, and each time he hopes that Cross's name will come up. On a new mission, he can't kill a businessman on his own while the target is moving in an armored limousine. Then Fox helps him by setting up her sports car as a springboard. By making a somersault above the limousine, the young Padawan manages to shoot the target through the open sunroof. After the mission, they go to Wesley's house to grab the gun hidden in the toilet. Seems like his friend Barry now lives in his apartment with Wesley's girlfriend. Wesley knocks out Barry by performing a May Gary on the door and heads straight to the toilet, while his girlfriend slings muck at him. Fox gets tired of hearing her screaming and decides to improve the status of the guy in the eyes of his ex. She gives Wesley a passionate kiss, and the couple leaves. Barry tells Wesley in his wake,
He's a man.
Wesley?
On the street, when Fox went to steal a car, Wesley sees Cross. He opens fire, but Cross manages to repel Wesley's shot with his bullet. The chase after Cross begins, with other members of the Fraternity joining. At an abandoned building site, Wesley accidentally shoots Exterminator. While he stands shocked by his mistake, Cross shoots a curved bullet from around the corner, hitting the guy's shoulder. Wesley wakes up in the recovery room. He sees how they are trying to save the Russian bro, but fail and Exterminator dies. Luckily, the bullet removed from his shoulder is the first one that can be traced. It was made by Pequarski. He works at a monastery in eastern Arabia. The Fraternity realizes that this is a specially prepared trap, and they don't want him to go alone. But Wesley manages to convince them that he's ready. Finally, Sloan gives him the canvas with Cross's name on it. When Wesley leaves, Sloan gives Fox the canvas with Wesley's name and orders her to kill him when he's done with Cross. The guy arrives at the monastery and found Pequarski. The man pretends to be running, but then he manages to lure Wesley into a trap. Fortunately, Fox, who was watching Wesley, arrives to his aid. Wesley shows the bullet and asks where they can find the owner. Pequarski promises to arrange a meeting with him. He brings them to the train station. Pequarski is waiting for Cross, while Fox and Wesley sit in ambush. Suddenly, the old man starts to run away. The couple chases him down. With his side vision, Wesley notices Cross in the car. He jumps on the train while Fox pursues Pequarski. The train leaves, and Fox realizes that Wesley is now face-to-face with Cross. She takes a decrepit Soviet car from an old couple. Pequarski calls Cross and reports that Wesley is on the train on his own. Cross grabs the guy and wants to tell him something, but Fox manages to catch up with the high-speed train in her rusty shitbox, which is apparently tuned, and opens fire on Cross. A shootout breaks out in the train, while Cross only repels bullets fired at him. The Fox's hoop tie rams the train, after which the train derails and hangs on the bridge like a sausage. Wesley almost fell into the abyss, but Cross managed to grab him. Sacrificing his life, the guy shoots his enemy and the whole car falls off and gets stuck in the gorge. Before his death, Cross tells Wesley that he is his father, and the fraternity lied to him all the time. Wesley asks Fox if it's true, and she confirms Cross's words. Wesley is the only one Cross would not kill. The other members just couldn't get to him. The guy learns that his name was also revealed by the loom and manages to escape from Fox by shooting the glass. He falls into the river together with his father's body. Wesley wakes up in the recovery bath in the house across the street from his former home. The guy hears his girlfriend telling her gal on the phone how disturbed she is by fooling away such a great guy. Peckwarski tells how his father was always around and watched his life. He didn't want his son to take this bloody path and tried to prevent him from meeting with the Fraternity of Weavers. Peckwarski gives him a piece of fabric with Sloan's name. It turns out that the loom revealed his name, and Sloan hid this. Cross learned that Sloan began to use the deciphered codes for his own selfish purposes, so he left the fraternity and promised to destroy it. Wesley finds a secret passage in the closet. There, in the secret room, are lots of explosives for rats and a detailed plan of the fraternity's base building. Wesley goes to the store and buys a horseload of peanut butter. Using it, he lures rats into a garbage truck. He breaks into the factory and releases his explosive rats. When the rats have done their job, he bursts into the building, shooting everyone in sight. He's using his weapons like conducting a symphony orchestra with it. At the most unsuitable moment, he has to fight the Butcher, who is a surprisingly tough opponent, but Wesley manages to put a honing steel in his chest. Finally, he gets to Sloan. Wesley is surrounded by the remaining fighters, including Fox. Wesley tells them that Sloan was afraid and hid the loom's choice, after which he decided to eliminate the only witness, Cross. The fraternity members demand their leader to explain this. Sloan shows them the folder with the names deciphered from the canvas. All members of the fraternity are among them. He says that they can keep following the loom's orders blindly, but in this case, they should all put a bullet in their heads. Or they could let it all go, kill Wesley, and rule the world using their skills. After that, he leaves, letting the members reflect. All fighters decide to follow Sloan and kill Wesley, except true-believing Fox, who fires a bullet in a circle, killing all of them, including herself. Wesley tries to pursue Sloan, but he vanished into thin air. Lost and exhausted, he walks to the ATM and discovers that his account is empty. A few days later in Wesley's office, everything goes as if nothing ever happened. Sloan sneaks up on Wesley with the Gletcher M712. The guy turns around and we see that it's not Wesley, but just a bait. He looks down and sees the Professor X logo under his feet. The nice, vintage-looking bullet pierces Sloan's head. Reverse motion shows us the entire path of the bullet, which flew through the boss's donut and penetrated Barry's energy drink. The bullet was fired from the house of Wesley's father. And now let's count how many people in the comments were triggered by me calling the red Dodge Viper a Ferrari. So, my friends, that was me recapping the movie Wanted. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe. It's damn important to me.